Hello everyone, GM. Welcome back to another episode of Overpriced JPEGs. It is time for your Friday recap where we are breaking down all the big news in the world of NFTs and Web3. Apparently now we're just like a shitcoin pod, so breaking down all the big news in the world of shitcoins here at Overpriced JPEGs. They're JPEGs. Joining me today is Gavin Purcell. Gavin, thanks for being here to shoot the shit on all this.
Of course. So nice to see you again. It's not like we see each other 15 times a day as it is already, but now we get to record it and let people listen to us talk.
Do you mind that I'm a phone call person? Like, I'm just like, I just want to call people.
No, I think that's great. I'd rather, honestly, the thing that's harder for me, I will say, originally when we started working together, there's a little inside baseball of the Overpriced, is Carly does a majority of her business over text, almost everything. And like, I'm fine with that, but I was not prepared for the level of actual business that gets done over text, like files shared, all that stuff. And it works well once you're used to it, but I was not ready for it in the beginning, I don't think.
It's not worse per se than anything else.
It's harder to search. It's harder to search. I will say the one time I executive produced an influencer's pilot, a TV show pilot for an influencer about 3 or 4 years ago. A well-known influencer, I won't say his name, but you would know who he is. And his big thing was he would talk into his phone and then text me the recording of it, which that was a different thing. He never texted. He just texted recordings to me. And I think there's a big thing of Gen Zs that do that as well.
This is a huge thing. I actually have strong feelings on this. I find voice memos as like this is what I want to tell you, like really irritating.
Yeah,
I find
too.
I think it's selfish. Like, it's fucking great for you. Yeah, it's easier to talk than have to type something. But now I have to sit there and Lord knows I talk quickly and I like things to happen quick. Like, not able to respond to you in real time, having to listen to 3 minutes of your freaking voice memo. I hate voice memos. I think they're really selfish. I won't judge somebody if you send me a voice memo. It is what it is. But like, I really dislike them. But yeah, Gen Z feels like it's more intimate or something. I'm like, what a weird form of trying to like recreate the connection you have lost because you're an Instagram generation.
Exactly.
Y'all know, I think one of the most powerful use cases for NFTs are loyalty programs, which is why I'm so excited about our latest partner, GALXE. That's GALXE. GALXE is a leading platform for building a Web3 community. It is a no-code, plug-and-play solution to create task-based campaigns and loyalty programs. With over 67 million users, GALXE has worked with folks like Optimism, Polygon, Arbitrum, and more than 2,100 other partners with reward-based loyalty programs of their own. And I'm especially excited to announce their latest product offering, GALXE Mintlist. Mintlist enables NFT projects to issue allow lists based on different user profiles. It's free to use, and projects can then take advantage of GALXE's other offerings, like Task and Quest, which incentivize audience growth and user retention in the long term. Go beyond the mint and keep using GALXE's infrastructure to reward users through on and off-chain actions. GALXE's goal is to help projects grow in an authentic way and help them retain their users and communities over the long haul. And as a user, you can start contributing to your favorite Web3 communities today, joining allow lists through Mintlist and earning rewards, NFTs, oats, tokens, and points. Go to galaxy.com right now, that's GALXE.com right now, or click the link in the show notes to get started. Your Web3 community is waiting. I am so excited to announce that this year, Overpriced JPEGs has partnered with OPENSEA, the world's leading NFT marketplace, built for everyone, creators, collectors, noobs, and experts alike. I'm an OPENSEA user because they have the best selection of NFTs and a truly inclusive view of the ecosystem, supporting 8 chains and 8 global languages. I trust the systems they've put in place to keep the space safe, like copyright protection, malicious URL detection and removal, robust verification, and more. It's why they are the place to buy, sell, and create NFTs. That's right. You know OPENSEA, you use OPENSEA, but did you know that OPENSEA now has drops? New exclusive projects launch every week from top projects and creators, and you can check them out now using the link in the show notes. They also recently introduced self-serve drops, which is in beta, and allows creators to launch their projects right on OPENSEA. This drops product gives creators access to tools like rich storytelling drop pages, multi-chain support, and drop mechanic customization. The full launch for self-serve drops is coming this spring. So check out the upcoming drops on OPENSEA right now using the link in the show notes and own what moves you. You'll also be supporting the show in the process. Okay. Well, neither here nor there. Usually we start off with like a vibes check at the top of the show, but really vibes are once again very blur centric. So I want to get to the blur blend story as quickly as we can. I also want to say that we have an interview with Rhett that is going to probably be the majority of this episode. Not the majority, but like 50% maybe of this episode, second half of this episode. Rhett is the artist who founded Turbo Coin. If you follow me, or Turbo Toad Token or whatever, if you follow me on Twitter, you know I have bought my first meme coin. I put $200 into Turbo Toad, not even because I want to make a bunch of money on it, but just because I was so moved by this guy and his story, which seems to be like the prevailing sentiment around Turbo Token. We'll talk more about it, but I'm really excited we have this interview with Rhett. Gavin, thank you so much for taking it. It was like 6 a.m. your time you hopped on this interview. I missed it flat out, even though it was 9 a.m. my time. I am actually incredibly jealous you had this conversation. I was like listening to the interview you did, being like, fuck, like having that like put me in coach feeling of like, damn it, how did I miss this? Like I want to be having this conversation. But you did a great job, so folks can look forward to that. We dive into more about Turbo Token and Rhett's background. Okay, I've got one story I want to get into before Blend.
Okay, let's do it.
Which I don't know if folks have been following this, but I think it's interesting. It's not going to take long. It's about Sports Illustrated and partnering with ConSensys, not as in the conference, but as in founder, parent company to MetaMask and Infura. I believe it's really like an augmentation of a ticketing product that Sports Illustrated has already had. So I don't know, you probably would know better than I that Sports Illustrated has like a ticketing product. Were you aware of this?
I was not aware of this at all, by the way, but I will say there's something interesting to me about this. Feels like, again, a nice little nugget, right? We're talking about a little nugget. Sports Illustrated, let's be clear, semi-dying brand, right? Like it's a magazine brand. I think the name means a lot to people still, but when you think about like what it drives in culture, it's not nearly as big as even something like, say, The Athletic is, I don't think, anymore, which is the company the New York Times bought and is a much larger kind of like mental model for people when it comes to sports. But I do like this idea that, again, we're slowly onboarding these kind of legacy brands into some form of this, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that's a big thing.
And this, once again, feels like it is an effort to meet the consumer where it is, as opposed to do anything cash grabby. So, you know, it's interesting. I obviously talk to John Rogers a lot. He comes on the show a lot. And his whole thing is like, he has all these little things he's looking out for in the entertainment world and really in Hollywood, these little proof points that things are moving in the right direction that may seem really small, but that over time add up to a seismic shift in the way our world operates around blockchain. So he's looking for big producers or, you know, big players in Hollywood that come on board. He's looking for these kind of first look deals, which is what we talked about most recently on the most recent episode of Blockbuster, which are where like a big Hollywood studio or something like an Amazon Prime Studios signs a deal with an NFT entertainment company. So that's what he's looking for. And this announcement, and I'm going to explain it a little bit more in a moment, but feels like that to me, much like the Matt Sanders thing, what Matt Sanders is doing with Ticketmaster and M. Shadows is doing with Ticketmaster for Death Bat Club. This feels like in that vein where it's these little steps in the right direction that over time add up to something bigger. So I guess it's not even entirely clear to me how new or old Sports Illustrated ticketing platform is, but it's sort of an Eventbrite style competitor where except they both have big events. It sounds like they're like, hey, you can have your event now next to a Beyonce concert and next to a sports game or whatever. So they either have or are certainly endeavoring to have these big events listed on their platform like a Ticketmaster. But then they're also adding this self-serve element where you as an event coordinator can just go on 10 minutes like you would use an Eventbrite, set up an event, set up tickets, set your ticket price, and like, great, you go live. Now these tickets, all of their tickets, they're calling, I think it's super tickets is the term they're using. And what that means is it's blockchain backed. So every time you issue these tickets, they're blockchained. I couldn't really figure out, my sense is they're like custodied within the Sports Illustrated ticket ecosystem. But though they're using Polygon, so that's not true. Like there's clearly a way, I'm sure it's like Reddit, right? So it's custodied within there. You could take the ticket off of it if you had the wherewithal to know how to do that. Obviously the partnership is with ConSensys, which does MetaMask. So there is I'm sure there's a non-custodial element to this too, if you wanted it there to be. But the big thing is that their whole phrase is like, we're going beyond the barcode. So you have one of these super tickets and you can add to it exclusive content, exclusive photos, all the stuff we talk about when it comes to extending a fan experience. So we throw this event, you know, think of an OPJ, we throw an OPJ event, we put the tickets for sale up on the SI Ticketmaster site or ticket site, and then I could send out an exclusive behind the scenes conversation that I had with Daniel Allegre. That didn't happen, but I'm speaking hypothetically here, you know, as part of the ticket. And now you have your ticket on your app or whatever, and you can watch this exclusive thing right in the ticket instead of it being like a barcode in the ticket. So totally the stuff we want happening.
The one thing I think is really interesting about Sports Illustrated doing this as a brand is opening up another angle on who could be doing this, right? Like if you think about like, yes, M. Sanders doing Events Unfold like in the rock and music business. Now, if we can find a way to get like sports people, I think sports collectibles are such a big part of the collectible industry. And if there's a way to connect sports more directly with NFTs in an interesting way. I mean, obviously we had Top Shop, but this could bring an interesting kind of pathway to access and utility that would be really cool, I feel like.
And you have the relationship between Flow and Ticketmaster, which has in essence gotten the NFL and I think the NBA, right, have been involved
NBA, for sure.
And the NFL, I know, issued tickets. Our editor, who was not an NFT person before he started editing the show, was like, oh shit, like I realized I went to a football game at some point and was one of the people who got, an email later saying that I could redeem an NFT, but it was before I had any idea what that meant. So I know the NFL has done some stuff. You also have Fanatics, which I've talked about a number of times on the show because you have Michael Rubin, that's the Fanatics guy, right?
Yep.
Who like divested from Candy and took some parting shots at NFTs. But his parting shots were more, he said, we now know NFTs aren't standalone businesses, which I think is probably debatable in and of itself. But either way, like I think Fanatics is just bringing a lot of what they're doing for sports memorabilia. They're incorporating those NFTs in-house as like you get a physical item and then you also get a digital NFT item attached to that physical, which is great. And if that as like an intermediary step here to full digital goods, fantastic.
By the way, also, that is kind of the future of what it should be, right? Like, I don't know if, like, NFTs to be mature fully, there will always be NFT projects and will feel like this, but, like, they should feel like part of something larger, right? Like, they should feel like a piece of something in the same way that other pieces of technology have come around and feel like something. I think one thing that when you follow this AI thread that's been happening, like, we always forget this, and we said it before, but like with AI, we're now hitting that period of time where it's all been baked in. Like we've been using AI in a crazy way and people haven't realized it. And now it's at the forefront and you can like do this thing very simply. What we're in the stage of NFTs right now is it's getting baked in, right? Yes. Like it's like we're in the recipe baking stage. It hasn't fully come out. We're not eating the bread.
It needs to have context. I brought this up on an episode recently because I sat next to an awesome woman who was talking about, who comes from the fashion world, who's like the problem with NFT fashion right now is there's no context around it.
Yes.
So nobody's actually looking at the individual fashion pieces you own anywhere. So, and they just exist in this vacuum. So that's why she was saying skins are more interesting when it comes to digital fashion right now because they exist in the context of a game and there's actually a social ecosystem around them. She's like, as somebody who's interested in digital fashion, I'm only really interested in video game skins right now. And I'm not into video games, but it's because it's the only place where there's context. And the truth is that applies everywhere here. Like a lot of these NFTs right now just lack context. We need to build the context around them for it to become interesting.
It's funny, we built the NFT first and then we tried to create context, right? When you think about like creating apes, Bored Apes, we tried to create the context of this very cool thing and look, it's cultural, but it doesn't work that way very easily. And it has to be like the craziest shoot off thing to make it work. And apes did for a brief bit. And now we have to figure out, it's the other way. We have to kind of flip it slightly.
Not to belabor this point, but Matt Sanders on the episode said NFTs for most of the time, for the last year or whatever, have been like selling tickets and scalping tickets to a show with no band. And somebody actually tweeted that out recently. They're like, that's one of the best lines I've heard about NFTs in a long time. And it was from our show with M Shadows. And it's saying the same thing, right? We haven't had context. We haven't had a fundamental kind of end game here. So anyways, exciting to see Sports Illustrated doing this. This is certainly an example of creating context. They also are claiming they're going to have lower fees than Eventbrite. They're calling it, they said this is an event management platform that is looking to disrupt the primary ticket market. And the other quote was, blockchain is the future of ticketing, and now owners, promoters, hosts, and attendees have access to an advanced ticketing experience that transforms the antiquated barcode into engaging and collectible content.
Pretty cool.
Again, I don't think it's going to revolutionize anything overnight, but it is one of those slow drips in the bucket that get us somewhere interesting. Okay, since we have a shorter show today because we have this great interview we want to air with Rhett, we should dive right into Blend.
Yes, let's get into it.
Folks, I'm sure are familiar with this. Also, damn, you know what? Like, great fucking name. Blend is a great name. So it's
by the way, B&B, I love their branding already. I can see the feels like it fits. It fits in the Blur board.
Blockchain, Blur, Blend, like this is what they're playing at. So Blend is Blur's lending product. They are staking a fork, I don't know, whatever the phrase is, into the lending business. What is the phrase?
I don't think they're staking a fork, are they? They're sticking a fork, which means that you're
they're laying a claim. They're laying a stake.
laying a claim, or putting a stake down, putting a stake in.
I had a long night, folks. We record these on Thursdays. Usually that's a good day to record these kind of things. What can I tell you? It was not a good morning for me this morning. Okay. In any case, very mixed reactions to this. I want to provide some context, and then I want to kick it to you to get your thoughts. Clearly what is happening here is Blur has a strong vision and has had a strong vision about the idea that the NFT market could benefit from greater financialization, and that the future of a mature NFT market is to make it look like a financial market, like anywhere else. Obviously, that is a very controversial take. My personal thought here is that that's not necessarily bad. We need to have all things, right? Like, it's actually fine to have financial markets around NFTs. The problem right now is it's the only market we have, because we don't have NFTs as our mortgages, as our tickets. Like, we don't have robust other markets for NFTs. So it feels like Blur's attempt to financialize this whole space is supplanting the space, but I think that'll be temporary. And I think if they succeed in creating a big financial market around it, that's interesting, so long as we have other alternatives. But this is just another step in that maturation of NFTs as financial products. It may be terrible for our case that NFTs aren't securities, though you can get leverage with, I'm sure you can leverage a baseball card. It's not,
I don't know. That's a good question. I'm not actually sure.
I was Googling it. There's definitely something. It's just not a big market, right?
Yeah.
There's not a huge market for leveraging collectibles, but you can. We'll get into the nitty gritty here. What is your thoughts though on the launch of Blend?
So, okay, I want to say I really admire the Blur team and what they've brought to this space in terms of a professional product, in terms of a team that really knows what the hell they're doing. This feels like a team with Pac-Man and everybody that actually is very competent, right? And I think you can't understate that fact.
Yes.
We have seen a lot of incompetent people come into this space, and a lot of people who have not developed things, and Blur has actively developed really interesting products. And I think their platform is as good as the leading platform out there. I think that what they've built is specific in what its audience is. They know who they're aiming for. I think Blend is a super interesting thing on its own. And I believe that they, in their heads, and I think, they're believing that what they're doing is what you said. They're bringing what they saw in DeFi and what helped make DeFi into a very, robust and more regular market. And they're bringing it to NFTs. And I think that is a good goal and a good idea at large. Yeah. My biggest concern about this, and I've said this in a couple places, and I want to shout out my friends in the Midcurve Discord. It's a small group of friends of mine who are TradFi guys and VCs and a bunch of other people who know a lot more about money than I do. And my concern is somebody who's been in this space enough time, but isn't necessarily a financial bro type guy, right? It's my background is creative, but I know the kind of people that are in this space. And I know also how much money is in this space.
Yeah.
And my biggest worry right now with Blend, and again, I think the product is fantastic and I actually get the idea and I think it can work. My biggest worry has to do with people are not smart when it comes to these sorts of decisions in this space. And not to say that everybody's that way, but there's a lot of people, as we've seen, who click on links, who do dumb things, who don't know how to protect themselves. And I think when you tell somebody, you can get a CryptoPunk for 5 ETH and you only have, it's buy now, pay later. Buy now, pay later works in certain places, but it will also wreck a lot of people, right? And I think that the hard thing I have a tricky time with this right now is I'm not 100% sure this was the best time to drop this.
Yeah.
I've said this a couple times to friends of mine and they're like, well, when would you want them to drop it? My thought was, well, wouldn't this be better dropped in a bull market so that you'd have a better chance of getting a sense of how it's used? But in their mind, I think they're dropping it now because volatility is, use is low, right? There's very many people using NFTs. They can probably get a testing period of time in before the bull market hits. Hopefully the bull market hits. Cross your fingers, everybody, that it comes back. But I think that in their mind, they're trying to do this now so they get a sense of what it is. I just worry that we've been through so much in this space in the last 2 months that it's a really tricky time to drop this sort of product on the market.
I don't think they feel much responsibility to the market or to the people who are trading on their platform. Not in a, I think they're immoral way, but I think there's different perspectives on this. And my sense would be that this is a team whose perspective is we build good products. People can use them. If people use them and how people use them is not really our problem. Hopefully I'm not putting words in their mouth, but that's sort of I can't imagine them not a little bit having that sentiment. Let's just talk for a minute. I'll break down here what we're talking about. So there's two different product offerings here. This borrowing product in some ways looks like what you have with a BendDAO or a NFT Fi, and except it's like that. And like with everything on Blur, that it sort of feels like it's like that on crack. So one big thing is that this is peer-to-peer. You're not borrowing from a pool. You're borrowing, Blur is actually matching you with another individual. And that individual sets the terms of the loan, unlike with these other lending protocols where usually it's an oracle. So it's not an actual human setting the terms. So like, I think with like BendDAO, for example, interest rates are set by an oracle according to sort of market dynamics, and like the liquidation prices are set by an oracle. So if you, borrow at certain terms and then the price of the asset you're borrowing goes like that floor price goes down low enough, there'll be like an automatic liquidation event where you either need to pay back. It's like a margin call, right? You'll get margin call essentially.
Yep.
That's not the case with this lending product on Blur. With this lending product, the lender sets the interest rates, and then there's no oracle that determines when the loan gets called back in. The individual making the loan can make that determination at any point after the first like 24 hours or 30 hours of the loan having been made. And the other piece of this that's really interesting is they can basically sell that loan. So they're also creating a second dynamic of financialization here, because the loans themselves are almost tradable. Because what happens is if I loan you, right, I loan you X, whatever. I always don't know how to phrase this, like 30 ETH or something to buy something. That's like a lot of money. And then I decide that at some point in 40 hours, I want to like call back, margin call you effectively what it would be in another lending protocol. The loan actually goes to an auction. And now other lenders can bid to take over that loan. And the interest rate on that loan is part of that auction process. If the interest rate started at 0%, which we should talk about because that's what's happening here, like some of these interest rates are like 0%, the interest rates will steadily climb over the course of the 30-hour auction to make it increasingly appealing to other lenders. So suddenly the interest rate can go all the way up to, I think it was like 1,000% or something like really crazy. Like the interest rate ends up at 100%. Another lender's like, well, shit, I'll take this for 100% interest. Now another lender goes and basically buys that loan off of the original lender. This is hard stuff to talk about. Hopefully I'm not like, people's eyes aren't glazing over as I try and describe this, but those are some key features here that are different than other lending protocols that make it more interesting and also feel like there's just even more dimensions for shenanigans.
Well, that's what, this is what I was going to say, which is that everything you said is 100% is right, but also like there are another 6 different things that are layers to this, right? Like, and to really understand this, you need to dig in and you need to read, people's writing about it. We wrote about it, but also you need to read Blur's post about it. And you really need to play around with it. And I think this is a space where people jump in and they just jump in and they don't have an idea. Now, I think it's good they only launched it with 3 projects to start. They launched it with Milady's, with Azuki, and Rat Punks, all of which have decent liquidity behind them. So they knew they could do that. Honestly, I'm not sure how many more projects they could launch this for right now. So it might stay in a very controlled beta for a while. So it might just be something which is really an experiment now. We don't have to worry too much about it. I know specifically they didn't launch it for apes, I think because of how many apes are in the BendDAO protocol. And I think that is part of the reason why apes may or may not get launched. I'm sure they've got to be thinking about apes because it is one of the largest projects. But I think that that's part of what's going on here, right? It's like, I don't know that anybody outside of true TradFi or DeFi financial people are going to understand what's going on unless they spend like probably a day really getting it.
Yeah. Well, and what's nerve-wracking about it is these terms are actually incredibly compelling for buyers. So if you are, the danger is in that mid-range of sophistication. If you're super sophisticated, okay, you've probably dealt with these kinds of products before and you know what you're getting yourself into. If you're unsophisticated, you might be scared away. But if you're just like a certain level of sophisticated, you're going to look at this and be like, oh, this is really intriguing because you have really favorable terms for borrowers happening here because of Blur points and the Blur token farming. So what has happened now with the Blur token is you will get points tokens. How do I phrase it?
I think points. It's points right now.
You get the points that will translate into the Blur token whenever they do the next airdrop. So you get Blur points for offering to lend. And so, and the points are determined by how much you'll lend and what APY you'll set it at, which is basically like that interest rate. So if you'll say, okay, I'll lend you 90% of the money for the NFT you want, and I'll put a 0% interest rate. In a normal circumstance, no lender would ever give those terms, right? Like that would make no sense for you as a lender. You're not even getting an interest rate. That's insane, right? Like why would you ever want to do this? But people are doing it because they can farm points that way and get a shit ton of points for keeping interest rates low and the amount of the loan really high. And so that's the dynamic here where, and you're getting crazy points. I mean, Sam from Proof did a thing saying like he tested around with some loans just to test the product and he got like 60 Blur points. Whereas for the last 2.5 months that he's been just trading a bit on Blur, he got like 136 points. So he got basically half the points in like a 24-hour period offering loans. He got half the points he had gotten in like 2.5 months of trading on Blur. So the points they're giving out for this are crazy. So of course you have Maki Big Brother. He's back. For real. Maki's back and he is the number one loaner, like lender on Blur right now. Who's offering these loans. So it's like with everything with Blur, like it's completely distorting what the actual market would look like because they have this token incentive system.
Or can I say one thing? Or it's getting to a point where it's getting us to a weirder, more real version of what the market will look like. And I don't mean this in a way to like, it's not what we were, but maybe there's a world where this is what we're going to. And I think the one thing that can come out of this is, you know, one of the things that's interesting about a market that's illiquid, as NFTs were in a lot of ways, is that the spike of prices that go from like 0 to 15 ETH or higher, like that's a market that doesn't have the kind of dynamics of a normal market to it. And I'm not trying to like defend this because I think in some ways I do think this is kind of a really tricky thing right now. But maybe this whole move into this space and everybody thinking that this is, you know, this thing that feels off to them. I think that's a thing that people feel is off. It could also just be like, look, we're moving into a different version of what these were.
Here's what I disagree. And I said this at the top, right? Like I'm open-minded to this NFTs as a financial market dynamic because I have a strong enough belief that is not the only thing that NFTs will be in the future, but that the other use cases for NFTs were not consumer ready yet enough with them. So that's why we're not seeing them. So like I'm not as cynical about the total financialization as other people are. I'm not like precious about the NFT market has to be one way or another. This cannot last. Like when I say that this is a distortion of the market, you cannot like it in the same way that we weren't finding the true clearing prices for these NFTs because you had airdrop farming, right? It is distorting the market dynamics in a way that you don't have in a traditional financial system. So the
reward system is
completely distorting it and I know Blur thinks that they're going to be able to keep this up for years, and so maybe they will. But at some point, this music stops, right? Like you do not have this capacity to reward like this for forever, and that is the distortion I'm talking about. Not that like the market as a whole is being distorted because there's more lending happening now, but it's the terms that the lending are happening at that aren't real.
Right.
And frankly, it's not as if there wasn't lending before. This again, Sam from Proof was saying this. You know, we had probably $50 or $60 million of lending happening in the market, I think on a monthly basis or whatever the terms were, right? Before Blur stepped in. So clearly lending was already a natural part of the market, and maybe Blur's product is a little bit better. So like with other things, there's some level of bump in lending that happens simply because you've got a better product, and that's natural. But these terms aren't natural because of the reward system.
That makes sense to me. I think that's a good point, and I think that this goes back to all the DeFi stuff too, right? And this is one of the problems that happened with DeFi was you had these kind of
these
fake
APYs
rewards.
that were insane, that were fake.
Yes.
And this is in some ways
they're fake while it was going. They were real while it was going up, and then they became fake while it was going down.
And you know what? I'll give Blur credit because this is what we saw with the APYs with like a Celsius, for example, is like they were just making completely risky, insane trades. Like there was no management on the back end there. Like that felt like more pure fraud in some sense because there was really nothing backing those APYs. In this case, it's not that there's like some secret machinations happening on the back end of Blur that we don't know about, but it's all resting on this token. And this is the piece I don't think we ever published the piece where we wrote about this, but my concern is Blur has always been a bit of a three-legged stool. And if one of the legs goes down, the whole system implodes on itself, which frankly has described a lot of things in crypto before. And I'm with you that I think the Blur team is sophisticated and incredibly intelligent and knows how to design a good product. But like there is a risk there. I see you looking at the clock. So I know we're running late.
That's okay. No, that's all right. No worries.
You've got to look at a house. You've got an apartment to look for. But that one of those legs of that three-legged stool that could go down is the value of the Blur token. Yeah. And when I describe that three-legged stool, and this isn't in the context of this lending product necessarily alone, but like you have volume happening because there's the promise of this token, right? Yep. The promise of and then I'm not going to get this right. So you have volume happening because of the promise of the token. You have the token has value because people are assuming that someday the token will get fees for trading. It gets fees for trading if there's volume, but volume is happening because of the token. And there's this kind of circularity there that makes me very nervous. And you're sort of having that.
Is there an argument here that, again, this goes back to my thought. Now I'm thinking maybe this was the right time to launch this, and that assuming the market comes back, assuming that the bull comes back, that we all kind of, again, fingers crossed, hope it does, the volume then is not needing to be generated as much by this machinations, but more by organic volume of people coming back in. So maybe there is something with I think you're right. I think this does feel kind of three-legged stoolish. But if the idea is that you're doing this now, and it's almost like a bridge to a period where we get volume back, I can see a world where it can work. But I think you and I both share concerns that like this right now, it doesn't feel real, and that it's kind of scary to do this sort of platform in a space where it doesn't feel real. Yes.
Look, what you just said is definitely what Blur is betting on. They are betting on being able to keep the reward system running until a market for it comes back. And, it remains to be seen. Okay, the final piece I want to talk about here is this buy now, pay later component, which they described it as like almost like mortgages for NFTs, right? It's pretty straightforward. You can put down less money than the whole thing costs and then pay it off. Now, the interest rates on these are high. It's like 0.15% daily, which amounts to a 55% interest rate on a year, which is a lot.
Yeah.
But, there's crazy upside. So, for example, this guy, Tyler D, bought an Azuki. He paid 2.2 ETH for a 15.9 ETH Azuki. So he only had to pay 2.2 ETH for that. He then sold it overnight for 16.9 ETH. So he essentially profited in ETH. I think there were some, I don't know, whatever. It's a little bit less than that, but let's call it an ETH. So what's interesting there is, if he had bought this Azuki for 15.9 ETH and then sold it for 16.9 ETH, he would have made that same 1 ETH profit. It's not like he made more profit. It's in percentage terms that this is really interesting because he only put down 2.2 ETH. So he made 50% of his money effectively, as opposed to whatever, a 1/15, like a 6% return had he put down that full 15.9. So that's why this gets interesting, is like in a percentage terms, the gains you can make when you're putting down less money are really interesting.
And this is what makes financial markets interesting at large, right? Like this is how people make a lot of money. It's leverage trading. It's doing all this sort of stuff. And I think this is where the sophistication of the true hedge fund guys or women or the people that come from that world understand this. And I think this is the thing of like, there is opportunity. But the tricky thing with NFTs is I don't think NFT markets are predictable in the same way whatsoever, right?
They don't have the same fundamentals, whatever Seed Phrase wants to tell you.
Yeah.
I understood Seed Phrase's point. People should go listen to that episode. Seed Phrase's point was that like there's fundamentals and like there's certain things that have historical value and art pieces. Like that's very different than fundamentals when we talk about like a stock and you're Warren Buffett and can see certain things. I mean, the other thing for people to understand is sophisticated traders who play with leverage are often hedging other positions. Like they're not just nakedly like doing.
You're not putting all the chips in on one thing. They're doing like 16 bets at once. Yeah.
They're long something and so then they short the thing. Like there's a lot of dynamics that are at play there, and we definitely do not, many of the people who trade in NFTs are not coming from that background, who understand those dynamics and understand like what they're hedging, where to go long, where to go short. Like it's a totally different thing. So I do think this makes me quite nervous. The last thing I'll say is it does feel like all of this stuff, and this again is something that Sam from Proof has been talking about a lot. He covers this great. Ultimately, Blur has driven prices down. There was that period of time where it was kind of unclear what was going to happen, and prices were even going up and felt like people like, oh, that's because of this Blur activity. But all of this stuff ultimately ends up putting assets in the hands of flippers and traders who aren't patient holders, and that drives the price down. Why do you disagree?
I disagree because I'm not sure you can directly associate that with Blur. I think
you can.
Well, wait a second. Let's talk about this because like there's a whole thing right now where the market was already in a bad shape, right? It was in bad shape. I'm not saying that like, making financialization and trading stuff is one thing, but I think this is the problem in some ways with launching your product in a bear market. Mm-hmm. You get associated with the overall sense of where the market is. And I think that Blur launched like right around FTX, right? Like they came out, I think in October of last year, and they've all throughout this period been dealing with way less people who have way less money in the space. And I think that had this come out in, I don't know, November of 2021, you would be thinking much differently about this because everybody's bags would still be going up at different ways. I don't think Blur is the cause of floors dropping, is what I'll say.
Okay, let me push back. I see what you're saying. I think it's valid to say, hey, look, there's already negative sentiment here. But let's take a specific example. OSF and Mando dumped their 72 apes. First of all, they pre-Blur, they wouldn't have been able to dump 72 apes all at once because there wouldn't have been the liquidity for that. And also,
but I'd say that's a good thing, right? Isn't that a good thing overall?
Okay, except for here's what happens, right? So if they can't dump those 72 apes, what do? They just hold them, right? And they ride whatever's happening, like ape floor falls a little bit, ape floor rises a little bit. They don't sell them. Instead, these patient long-term holders, OSF and Mando, who are super bought into the ape ecosystem, sell them into Maki, who's here to flip, who doesn't actually give that much of a shit about holding these apes. So what does he do? He needs to get his ETH back so that he can keep trading. He's willing to dump them for 60 ETH and it drives the floor price down. And I think you have had that dynamic now over and over where all roads end up leading back to these flippers who are trying to airdrop farm, who have no real loyalty or affinity for the projects. They're using them as tools. And so they're willing to take losses because they want the Blur points. That's the other thing, is that the Blur points made taking losses acceptable, which drives floor prices down because you think you can offset them. So I think both things can be true at once. You're making a point that we were already in a bad market place. And so a lot of these floors would probably come down anyway. I think it is kind of undeniable, though, that Blur has also accelerated that trend for the reasons I just laid out.
I think it's fair. I think it's the acceleration of the financialization trend, which is the tricky thing, right? Yeah.
Okay. We'll continue to track this story because it's such a big one. We are going to cut to our fabulous interview with Rhett. Thank you for doing that. And when we come back, you and I will talk about it. But first, we do need to hear a word from our amazing sponsors. Let me introduce you to a brand new company that I could not be more excited about. Web3Sense. A Web3 analytics platform that combines on-chain data with social media insights to give you the deepest, most meaningful intelligence into any NFT community. I have tested other analytics platforms out there, but Web3Sense has the most comprehensive capabilities I've seen in the NFT ecosystem. They apply sophisticated data science to wallet histories to determine behavioral patterns and help shape predictive analytics. In other words, they can tell you which Twitter accounts are actually the influencers in your space. And they can tell you what resonates most within a community by looking at what other communities token holders are involved in. The number of use cases here is virtually unlimited. So whether you're a trader, creator, institution, brand, agency, I promise Web3Sense has data that you want to see with the deep and actionable insights that you need to build, analyze, grow, start, whatever you want to do within the NFT space and in terms of building a business and a community. Now, they are still in very early days, so they're eager to connect with the community. So if you're interested in learning more about what Web3Sense can do for you and your business, and you should be, go and fill out the very short form linked to in the show notes, and someone from their team will reach out with more information and an opportunity for a product demo. Trust me, you won't regret it.
All right, Rhett, thank you for joining us here. We really appreciate it. Life must be a little bit crazy for you. So tell us a little bit about what this has all been like so far.
It has been a whirlwind, that's for sure. I was just hanging out with my own ideas, trying new things, experimenting as I always do with my art. And I did not expect something like this to blow up as it has. Not in a million years could I imagine it would get as big as it has. I had to sort of switch off from socials altogether. I could not keep up with the amount, and I was not being productive at all. So I'm stoked about what's happened. Who could?
I think it must be. Yeah, it must be very cool. What's been really cool to me. To see the kind of artist community come out and support you as an NFT artist. Can you tell me a little bit about how you got started in NFTs? Like, what was your background?
Generally, my background is I had like 20 odd years in art and design commercially in design studios, advertising studios, branding, that type of thing. I did a bit of music video direction and commercial directing. So I sort of come from that world, and I semi-retired from that when my daughter was born. And I was going to take some time out, which I did. And then it sort of turned into, I couldn't help it being a creative, I started doing creative things with her as well. And we ended up doing like YouTube channel and Instagram, and all those sort of blew up for her as well. And she's got over 100,000 followers on there and
Whoa, no way, really?
millions
That's
of
so
views on
cool.
YouTube. So it's been a fun, like I like experimenting with things. So when YouTube was coming out, I was experimenting with videos. Instagram came out, I said, okay, how can we use this and do interesting images and photos? So any new technology I'm totally into. That's why when I discovered, the first time I saw on Instagram hashtag crypto art, I was like, I've been into Bitcoin since 2013, and I sort of bypassed Ethereum and sort of crypto kitties when I saw it, and I was like, I was a bit of a Bitcoin maxi, and so I passed on Ethereum at $1, and I learned my lesson a few years after that. I stopped being a maxi. I learned my lesson, and I was like, I can get into this for sure, crypto art, and combining my two passions. So it wasn't long after that. I was doing a lot of study. I think early 2019 is when I was first looking around and researching, but I didn't actually mint my first one until 2020 on Super Rare.
By the way, incredibly early still. I mean, that's very, very early in this space, right? Like 2020 is still pretty early.
Totally. Yeah, we were still dabbling then. My first one sold to Matt Cain, who's a pretty well known.
Of course.
Yeah, and he bought it for half an Ethereum, which at the time was a couple of $100. So we were still just messing around, seeing if this was a thing. And experimenting. So I was glad I was here at that early stage, trying new things. And so that's how I sort of entered, and I've been experimenting and trying things ever since on many platforms. But the latest innovation I'm trying, of course, is AI, and that's just been taken over my life the last 9 months. And I've been trying so many different things. And before this experiment, it is pretty dead. Generally in NFT art world, digital art type of space. And so I was like, let me have a think about all the different things I could do that, not about making money at all. Let me just flip this script. And so I was playing with AI. I just want to learn. And then I started doing like remixes of people's work, and I started training the AI on other well-known artists' work. So like Xcopy was one. And I was feeding it in. I was learning how to train, and then I
wait a second. Were you the one who was doing "Let me make this thing in this style"?
Yeah,
was that? Oh my gosh, you did one of my old men. I didn't realize this. That's so funny. That was the thing I saw you did like a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah, that was me. Yeah.
That's so funny. I didn't even know that.
Yeah, cool. And that was, and I don't know what to like. You look at it back now, and it was maybe like a digital performance art type of thing. It was like. But I don't like perceive it as that. I'm not like a performer, but it's just an idea, an experiment. And I was like, I can do this for people. I can get their profile pictures, and then I can make it into an Xcopy lookalike or version of it, and then get it back to them. And I was doing hundreds of those in a day.
Yeah.
And I was like, there's no way I could make this quality of art, this style of art this quickly and have it back to people like almost instantaneously. So I was exhausted from that, almost as exhausted as I am now. But it was just so interesting to try that. And it just made me look in a different light at how we use AI and how it can sort of leapfrog just our understanding. Because usually I would have an idea, and then I'll be like, this would be such a process. It would be a production so long, and I've got to do all these different stages. It could take a week or whatever. But I can do hundreds now in a second and have them back to people and have their responses. And then that go viral almost immediately. Like, Xcopy saw that, and he, loved it, and he retweeted it. And so I just continued doing that. And, I was doing it with people's permission. Like Xcopy said, I don't need his permission, but I still ask anyway. And I did that with heaps of other artists. And so that is what sort of led me into, I was like, well, I'm doing it with images. I was like, let me see what I can come up with ChatGPT with just text, and what sort of is most out of my comfort zone, or just something, I'm into crypto, but I've never ever tried to do a token, or I've never, done a meme coin or anything like that. I'm on the art side, on the opposite side of the, the shitcoin type of area. So let me try that. I thought, what's the worst that could happen? Let me just see if this is there any sort of experiment here that I could learn from or try, and
Yeah.
and I hadn't seen it done before, and I was like, I reckon people might get a kick out of this, seeing.
I think it's so. Yeah. I mean, I was gonna say, when I first saw the tweet, because I want to say Brian Brinkman, who's a friend of mine. I don't know if you know this, but Brian, I used to be a TV producer. I worked at the Tonight Show, and Brian was our graphics artist. So like, Brian and I have known each other for about 10 years. And Brian is one of the best people I know, like just a genuinely awesome human. And I saw him tweet about it like pretty quickly after you had done maybe half of it, I guess. I think the token had launched when I finally saw it, but I saw the full like kind of thread. And what kind of shocked me about it a little bit was just how honest and experimental and fun it felt. Like, it felt like an art project, right? And like, one thing I'll say is that like, I have the same experience with AI that you have, which is AI feels like a supercharger for my curiosity. Like, I'm drawn to what I can do with it and how much more I can expand out the things I'm interested in with it. And one of the best use cases, I think, is like, how can you get it to do things that you don't know how to do? Like, I've been playing around with programming in a way that I never thought I would before. Like, a lot of Python work. I've learned how to do pretty deep stable diffusion stuff now. I've learned how to make LoRa's, all these things I never would have thought I would have done as a like, mostly like, I always tell people I'm an English major TV producer, writer, and it's like, that's not really my background. But I wanted to say, when I first saw that thread, I was like, oh, this is really cool. Like, I liked seeing what Rhett's doing here. I think this is a really interesting experiment. Obviously, I don't think anybody expected it to do what it did. I threw a tiny bit of money at it early on because I was like, oh, this is such a fun thing. I want to support somebody creative, because I do this a lot in my NFT buying. It's not like the best like investment choice. And I think that what I wanted to kind of think and ask you is, okay, so it's out there, like kind of how you did this. I think it's very clear. If you don't know, we'll make sure you can link to a thread where Rhett basically step by step went through every part of this. He used ChatGPT to come up with the concept. Give me, if I'm ever wrong, let me know. Come up with the concept, help design the tokenomics, design the logo, design the smart contract, right? Like, you actually tried to do some smart contract work. Tell me about how the smart contract part of it was used with ChatGPT, because I think this is a question that's out there a little bit.
Yeah, I was dumbfounded, like how much it could actually do. I was... Most of the time, I was just a copy pasta kind of guy, and I really felt I was at times just being the I am a human check button, in between. And I feel like if it had a connection to like an API or whatever directly to these sites, it could have easily done it itself. As much as possible, I reckon I got it to do. That was part of the experiment. I wanted to see like what it could do. And sort of the real challenge that I had was I sort of found that like in this time of abundance of information and results at your fingertips, it's really the quality of your questions that you ask, which is the most important. So if you put in, junk in, junk out. So if I've got a bad question to ask, it's going to give me a bad, so it's, I don't want to say prompt engineer, but I'm sure that will sort of be a thing. So yeah, I found it difficult to put in questions. So specifically around the times when I was doing the development, because I have never done that before, so it's hard to know what to ask it to do, or what if it's something's gone wrong, I have no idea. So I literally just asked it, I want to make I think it's called a smart contract on Ethereum blockchain. And it said, okay, I'd already given it some parameters. Like, I've got a budget of $69, so it knew those things. So with that in mind, it was like, okay, well, you need to go and learn Solidity coding, because that's how you make it. And I was like, I can't. I'm not going to spend years going off just because I got $0. I was like, well, can you do the coding for me? And I said, sure. And then it just started writing code in front of me. And I was like, okay. And then I just copy pasted.
Why not?
Yeah, I just copy pasted. It said, and I said, okay, what do I do with this code? I literally didn't know. And it said, copy it, paste it into, a text file, name it with a .sol at the end, And so then I had this file and I said, what do I do with this now? Literally just as if I was a 5-year-old asking baby steps. And it does, and it sometimes gives you a broad understanding. But then if you don't know, you just take that one step and say, can you break this down for me, those steps? And then it just walked me through the process of going through Remix, which is a virtual environment I've never used before, and it go and press this button here and press it. And sometimes it is a little bit out of date. So I believe it's currently trained up to 2021. So things progress. Buttons are in different places. So I had to look around for where that button was now and what it was called. But generally, I was able to find it. And then you paste that in, and it says now you press the run button or the compile, and you do that, and then it will spit out an error most of the time. And then I go, well, I don't know what that means. I can't fix it. I'm sure someone else can. I just copy that error back into GPT, and it said, oh, okay, sorry, apologies. I got apologies quite a lot. And, and then it just fixed its own error. So it doesn't get it right straight away. It doesn't know what you're trying to achieve. But you just give it those parameters, and that's just a feedback loop. I just kept doing the errors back and forth until it didn't give me an error. And then that was it. And then you just progress through, and deployment and testing and auditing. And, in each step I was like, how's this going to work? I don't know. But you just take yourself away from it and go, well, I accept that I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how to get to the end point. I'm just trusting that the AI has all the information from, the virtual sphere everywhere. It's compiling it. So let me just trust that. And then from the outset, I had also said that I do this with my audience. I didn't have a big
which
following.
is also but I will say, like, that was one of the things that's most compelling to me about this, and I think in part because Web3 in a lot of ways is about community, right? And I thought what this was so brilliant was it was a way to kind of bring a community into this process. And I think the other thing, as somebody who's seen a lot of shitcoins in the world and seen how they've developed, so much about shitcoins is shaded in kind of like cloudiness on purpose, let's just say, in the positive way, right? Like, there's a lot of shitcoins that have rugged. I've been part of ones that have rugged, and I've not made them, but I've been bought into them, and it's a bummer in that way. And of course, you're never going to know how something's going to go. But I really appreciated the documenting along the way and watching your progress, because it felt like I was part of something. And I think that's how you start something significant. And I don't mean this when I say significant, I mean from an artistic standpoint, not from a monetary standpoint, nothing else. But I think that what's so interesting about this space, through things like Twitter or Discord, or now through, shared ownership, is that you really can share your process, and then everyone starts to feel like a part of something, right? And it seems like that's kind of what you wanted to do from the beginning. Am I right there?
Yeah, definitely. Like, I like to share as much as possible. I grew up where I wished I could have had access to what people have access to now. So I always sort of make a mission to, if I can, as much as I can give about the process of something, whether it's AI or whether it's my art. I've got tutorials years back from doing 3D art on YouTube. So I try and share the process as much as I can, because I remember if I was a kid, I would be loving that. I would just be eating all that content up, because it's so difficult. Like, if you're just trying to do something, the amount of time you take, a trial and error to do something. So I appreciate that side of things. And so I just got used to building in public and sharing things where possible. You can't share everything, but it was just curiosity. I just try and follow that curiosity, and you never know where it's going to lead. And I sort of have that, it's not a pessimism, but you sort of think that things aren't worth doing sometimes, and they're like, what's the point of doing this? And I just take myself out of that sometimes and say, well, just give it a go. Just try it. You don't know where it's going to lead, but just try it. You don't know, the same token, you don't know where it's going to lead. It could lead down a great path or a dead end.
I mean, to me, that's the secret of life, right? Like, I think in a lot of ways, and I've been trying to say this in public in many different forums, because I believe very much the same way. I believe that curiosity is how you stay active and engaged in the world. And I think that if you don't stay curious, it can be something that you can pull back and you can start to feel, not happy with your place in life. You can feel unaware of what other people are doing, but curiosity kind of leads you to lean in, right? Which I think is great. Okay, I want to ask you a couple of things about how this has gone so far, because I think it's fascinating. So if you're not familiar with this story, again, it's an amazing story. Rhett's told it. He had a very long YouTube video, which I found very inspiring and very charming, by the way. Let's talk about what it felt like when you realized that this was becoming a thing. Like when you first, because I think in the beginning, it was clear that you were just doing this as an experiment in curiosity. And then suddenly, I think there was, I remember I was in it early enough. When I was in it early enough, the liquidity was pretty low, and it was like, oh, this is fine. It'll probably just kind of fall off. And then where was the turning point? Like when you first noticed this was becoming something else, like, do you remember the moment where you were like, oh, this is actually taking off in some way?
It started really slow, relatively,
Yeah.
to
No,
what,
it definitely
what
did. It definitely
happened
did.
afterwards.
Yeah.
I think it started to take off just as anything viral starts to take off on socials. People start sharing it around. They find it interesting. They think other people's going to find it interesting, so they just share it. So I had a few people just share it online. I've made some decent online friends in this space, and they know that I'm legit and I'm here for the right reasons, so that they have no issue sharing my content, even if it is a shitcoin or whatever this weird thing is.
Right.
So they shared it. I think when it was starting to get near sort of 1 million market cap, I was like, that's a lot. Like, this is not just a little project anymore. Like, there's people actually trading back and forth, and someone sort of solved the liquidity pool problem. Like, then Pranksy came along and he sort of put a decent amount into a new liquidity pool. And I was like, well, okay, it's sort of still low liquidity. And compared to what I see other people saying, like, this is like terrible liquidity percentage according to what you're meant to have. Like, all these people come with their tokenomics and say you meant to have this much and you should have done this, and everyone's telling me how I should have done things. And I'm like, okay, like, I didn't choose to do it this way. Like, I followed the path, and I've got go have a look at what I did. I got to this point through the process, and it might still fail at any single point. It might still fail. And so I'm not saying I'm this genius that knows all, how to do a massive proper launch of a coin and do the tokenomics. And still to this minute, there's heaps of issues because, I'm finding, I'm not going to say that we're listing on a central exchange yet. Well, actually, a couple of smaller ones have already picked it up. But the bigger ones, they require liquidity to be given to them or something, on launch, so they've got something. I don't have that. We don't have that. This was launched in such a way that it was distributed around equitably, fairly at the very beginning. So now those people who decided they didn't want to sell the whole time, they become whales, I guess. And now sort of people are worried about that. And then things that I've learned, like, you're never going to win because people are worried that the whales are too big, or they're worried the whales are selling and becoming smaller and selling, that they're going to tank the market. So there is no win. Like, people are upset either way. It's just is what it is. And what I sort of like about it, even though it's sort of possibly all wrong in terms of what you're meant to do, that it is fair, and it might not be controlled, by a central type of place who's controlling it, but the idea that it's not, I think, makes it aggressively volatile but inherently fair. Just like it reminds me of the early days of Bitcoin. It will be so volatile, but it's just people with deciding to sell at some certain time because they had a heap, and then, no one was buying it. So it tanked 80%. Like, that happens in actual markets, and it doesn't mean it's bad. It just means it's volatile.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think one of the interesting things is watching in the Discord, which is, by the way, is I enjoy the Discord. There's a lot of interesting people in the Discord, and I love also the fact that it's a Discord and not a Telegram for right now. Although I'm sure a Telegram will exist, or it already
Someone
does
had
exist.
started a Telegram.
Yeah, there you go. But one of the things that's so interesting is when you see people. I think this is always where things get tricky, right? When something gets very valuable very fast, and we saw this in the 2021 run up of NFTs. Everybody gets they're suddenly an expert, right? Like everybody's an expert. They all want to tell you what to do. They all want to explain what to do. And in shitcoins, I think especially it's that way because everybody's has lost money on it, on shitcoins, right? I think I would say like, I would maybe even say 100% of people have lost money at some point on a shitcoin, right? Like if you've been in a shitcoin, you probably lost money on a shitcoin. So I think everybody, when they see something, they know the fragility of the space, right? They know how fragile it is. I think the thing that's been interesting to me about this is, and part of the reason that I've been really interested in what you're doing is so much of the shitcoin world has been like narrative driven, right? Like what's the narrative and how you tell your story and then like what people come up with out of it. And I think personally, I think this has a couple really interesting narratives. One is you, because I think you are a really interesting person. You do really interesting art, and all these NFT artists coming out to support and being part of it is cool. But the other part of it obviously is the ChatGPT narrative, which are both interesting. I think that because the narratives are so strong and because it's so interesting, sometimes people like fight against that because like there's this nebulousness to the shitcoin world that people sometimes like. And, I love what Pepe's become and what Pepe is. And I think that there's this kind of feeling right now that like Turbo's trying to like creep on Pepe in some way and becomes this like weird PvP dynamics. Like, what do you think of all that world and how that kind of like conversation goes on, especially on Twitter?
Yeah, I've been really pleased with people coming to. I missed all of sort of apparently there was negativity and toxicity and stuff like that, and then I just sort of logged on and I saw people like yourself or others writing sort of mini essays about why this is not what they think it is, because they had obviously not seen what you and others had seen. And they didn't get the context of where this was coming from, and they were looking at their charts or looking at distributions from the other side, and going, "This doesn't look right. This doesn't." And this is just built different. So when I see those things, I just it's not me. It's not the personal attack on me. I get it. They're just saying, people watch out, this could be a rug like hundreds of other rugs and scams that have been out there. So I don't take it personally. It's cool, but I do. But same token, I see people come in to the Discord who just see number go up and they're like, "Oh, I want this." They come into the Discord and they go, "Okay, what's the tokenomics? Where's the team?" They ask all the same questions as they're expecting, so they don't get rugged on some scam coin. They want the proofs of, and people are like, that's not here. That's, this is open.
It's different. It's something different.
The distribution's totally different. So, it is what it is.
I mean, do you see this as something that like could become like a larger thing? Like, I mean, I guess part of it is just like kind of going with it as it comes along, but do you have plans for it? Like, what do you want to do with this? Like, now that you've done this thing that's taken off, it's interesting. It's often a question of like, how do you, the word, it's not cash in, but like, how do you like capitalize on attention like this? What do you want to feel and what do you want to do? Like, what is the message you want to get across with all this?
Yeah, it's sort of like an anti-message. It's like the opposite almost. Like, I don't have a vision for this. And I'll be totally clear, like from the start, I didn't have a vision. I just wanted to see if something could exist. And getting to the launch stage was almost the end of my journey. But we've sort of started a new one. And the new one for me is the openness and, it's like the Bitcoin analogy, like Satoshi steps away and everyone makes it something. It's got no inherent value except for what people want to do with it. So that's what I'm trying to do. So I'm here to support. I'll talk about it and I'll support people's ideas. But I just saw that generative art initiative just before as well. Like, I didn't come up with it. Like, other people are coming up with things, and that's what I'm sort of all I'm saying. Because when people come in and say, okay, what's the founder vision for this, or what does he want to do? I don't chime back, but other people now will say, no, there is none. Like, you if you want something to happen, you do it. And so I've been telling people that as well. Like, they're like, can we reach out to this exchange or whatever, the smaller ones? And I'm like, you go for it. Like, if you are invested in this, like, you invest your time, invest something else. It doesn't need to be just money and then just rely on someone else to do the work and blame them if the number doesn't go up. Like, it's not up to me. It's not my thing. I release everything. It's yours. You can use the mascot, the logo, use the idea. And I'm trying to, like, we've got like 8 mods in Discord now. A couple of them are admins. Like, it's not me running the show. I can barely even get in there. So I come in there and I'm like, oh, this is amazing that you guys have made. And so that's what I'm trying to be open to. The non-vision, the ability for people to be able to come up with weird and wonderful things, and for me to appreciate it and not try and control what's happening.
I think that's super smart, because honestly, in a lot of ways, as we see in the NFT space, sometimes, roadmaps and vision, they often can get in the way of things. And what's cool about organic things like this, and I truly do believe this is organic. Like, I think that one of the things people should know out there is, and as Rhett referred to, like, there was some FUD going around that I responded to a tweet, but it's like, this is about as organic as you're ever going to see in this space because of what it was and how it was laid out. And it's in a weird way, it's kind of like the blockchain, right? Like, in the blockchain, you can go back and see how things, and you can kind of connect the dots, and you can see how something was launched. You laid it out all on Twitter as well, right? Like, you have the dots, they're all laid out. It's very clear. I just want to say, I really appreciate that, like, openness and honesty. And I think also the conversation around the idea of a non-vision is really interesting, right? Like, and I think connecting it to Satoshi is a kind of an interesting thing too, is like kind of laying something out there and then it's a CryptoPunk way too, right? In some ways, it's like punks were a really interesting experiment and they did some cool stuff with it. And then it was like, okay, it's yours. Like, go make it what it is. And they became a cultural movement kind of came around it. I'm not saying that's going to happen with Turbo Token, but I appreciate it in that way.
Yeah. Well, when you're on that, I also just want to say I'm not comparing myself to Satoshi. What I'm doing is like almost the opposite. Like, he was someone who ultra smart, can do all the code and is anonymous and steps away. I am totally dumb. I don't know any of the code and I'm fully doxed and talking about it. I'm like the opposite. So it's sort of the anti-Bitcoin is the opposite, but that's maybe why it's working as well, because it's still about everyone doing their own thing and coming together and seeing a common, future, but they don't know where it is yet, just build together as we go.
Well, thanks so much for joining me, Rhett. I appreciate it. And we wish you luck with Turbo Token and all of your adventures in the future.
Much appreciated.
Oh, I am still so jealous that you got to have that conversation. I'm so bitter that I missed your, and like, God bless you, you texted me with plenty of time being like, hey, get on at 9 a.m. with him. And I just totally freaking missed the texts. So
he's in Australia, so it's tricky. He was going to bed. That was the issue, right? Yeah.
I totally get it. No, thank you for taking that conversation. Again, I had like severe put me in coach feelings. I was like, I want to be having this conversation. Okay, so I teased this at the top. Again, I've been talking about it on Twitter. I want to be really clear here. Like, I'm in no way trying to shill a meme coin here or like tell people to go buy it. I've been really transparent. I put $200 in. If it goes way up, I'll probably sell that. Like, but it's $200. Like, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And also, I've had people coming at me like, hey, you're kind of late on this. Like, this has been happening for days. I know. You've been talking about it for days to me, I mean,
so by the way, it's only 3 days old, so it's not even that old, right? This is the thing. Like, people always think they're at the front end or back end of something. It's like, it's 3 days old. It's a conversation that's still happening. And in the same way, by the way, for you, I have some as well. I want to make sure people understand, like, just disclosure, like, definitely I got into this mostly.
You got more than me, baby.
Well, the funny thing is, I didn't say this in the interview, but I got in because Brian Brinkman, my good friend who used to work with me at the Tonight Show, tweeted about it because he got in because he knows Rhett. He and Rhett came into this space in 2020, not 2021 together. And so like there is this kind of wholesome interestingness about what this was in the first place. It was really like an experiment that he was trying to do. And that was what kind of got me into it in the first place.
And I have never been a shitcoin or meme coin trader because I'm not really a gambler, which is funny for anybody who's still in this space, frankly, because like, what are we doing? And obviously trading NFTs is gambling, but there's always been something very like grimy about shitcoins because shitcoins are grimy. And you talked about this with him a bit in that conversation. Like, and for me, it just felt very basement-y. It felt very like shady people doing shady shit. And this was the opposite of that. This felt so damn wholesome and just like lovely. I watched the YouTube video. People should go see it. We'll link to it below. The like how I made $20 million meme coin with AI. Couple things that stood out to me in that conversation. I love that he's really adamant about, hey, you want this to go get listed on an exchange? Like, go do it yourself. I think one of the big paradoxes of this space is the community being like, it's all about the community. We're the most important thing. Like, you should like care about us, but also it's all on you to go make us money.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think that's valid if the owner in like a less fair launch scenario, like, yeah, you know what? You wanted this, you did this, you have the most to gain project founder, like go make it happen for people. But in this case, because of the way he launched it was so fair, he had so few, like he had no expectations. I really love him standing up and being like, yo, like go do what you want with this. Like we all kind of launched this together. I was very open about it from the beginning. So I loved that with him. I loved him standing up for himself in that way. I loved the conversation you guys had about curiosity. I'm a big believer in follow your curiosity. It's like the biggest piece of advice I give is like, don't follow your passion, follow your curiosity, because that's really way more powerful. And then everybody who hasn't watched this video, it's so funny because you have that feeling when you hear about this. When I started even watching his YouTube video of like, shit, why didn't I do this? I'm a content creator. Why didn't I have this damn idea? I'm playing with ChatGPT all the time and it never occurred to me to do this shit. Like, damn it. And then I get like halfway through the video and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so glad it's him. I'm so glad this is happening to him. Like, I'm so genuinely happy that somebody who's been grinding in this space for a long time, like he has had a win like this. It's the kind of person you want to win.
And I think that's the thing that people are responding to, right? And I think that's why, to me, it's different than your average shitcoin and why, like, I'm responding to it, because it's not like 5 Anon guys in Telegram, saying, yo, bro, let's go. It's like, it's a real guy. He's got daughters who he like, he has a daughter who he talks about like bringing on to Instagram and YouTube and experimenting with her. Like, and he's open about it. Like, I thought one of the interesting things that he said at the very end was like, look, he got into an early conversation about he's a BTC maxi, right? A Bitcoin maxi. And then he comes out of it and goes like, but like, I'm not Satoshi Nakamoto. Like, I am kind of dumb. I'm kind of,
I'm not doxed. I don't know how to code, or I am doxed and I don't know how to code.
I'm not, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and the last thing is, as much as I say, I don't know if this thing will go up, and I was quote unquote late to it, right? In the sense that there had already been 1,000% run up. I'm pretty sure by the time I bought in, I couldn't tell you what the price was because Lord knows there's 1,000 zeros still in front of it. But when I watched that video of him talking about that, when there were 2,000 views on it or so.
Yeah.
Last time I checked, there were 11,000. I'm sure it's probably 20,000 now. Like, it did still feel like the broader internet and the broader like GameStop trader world, for lack of a better term,
not aware of it yet.
Hadn't picked up on it yet, and it felt like it had the kind of thing where as people watched that YouTube video, that there were still legs for it to have.
Yes.
Is it up
I think. I mean,
I bought it?
I don't. I think it's probably pretty flat since you bought it. But I think that one thing that I keep thinking about this is, and again, this is not me shilling, but the narrative of people wanting to talk about things that AI does in the world is very strong, right? Yeah. And what Rhett did is a very clear understanding of like taking AI to its extreme. And I mean, to me, it's like, I have no idea what it's going to do from here on out. Like, I don't know what I'll do with it yet, but I'm more than happy to hang out for a while and see how it goes, because the Discord's super fun to be in. I really admire what Rhett's done as a person. And I was just happy to get a chance to talk to him and kind of hear him in the middle of it, kind of talk about it.
I loved it. Actual last thing, he made a comment like, gosh, if there were better APIs for it connected to these different sites and connected to different things, like Rhett wouldn't have had to do anything. That's the thing that's so exciting to me thinking about AI is like, when it does have better interconnectivity with other websites, and you have the first version of GPT-4 that is connected to the internet.
Yeah,
I
it's
still
amazing.
don't have that yet. I've
Yeah.
I'm on the wait list. I'm trying to get it, but that's where the AI stuff gets real interesting, where it really starts to become your assistant, where you're like, great, now just go draft those tweets on Twitter for me.
Yeah.
I need some tweets, go draft them, and then all I have to do is like go and be the final
Pick 'em out.
spend.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, thank you for doing that, and we'll talk to you next time.
Great. Bye, everybody.
Gavin had to head out, but a couple more quick hits that I want to make sure we cover here on today's episode. I know this is a longer one because of our Rhett conversation, but I think it's important to mention. So Truth Labs has released Big Corp Inc., I believe is what it's called. Or I should say this, Truth Labs has claimed ownership for Big Corp Inc. This was something that had been circulating. It was like, basically, are you down bad in Web3? Apply for a job here. What it turns out is it is the second collection to Goblin Town. It is within the Goblin Town ecosystem. It is 15,000 NFTs. Seems like the narrative is like Big Corp is like the company within Goblin Town. I don't know. I'm assuming it's got like a villain angle. Big Corp sounds like a villain angle in a story. I don't know. In any case, it's fun. As with everything that Truth Labs does, the marketing on it is top notch. And basically, you can go onto their website and plug in your wallet, and it will calculate how down you are, like how much your bags are down. And the 1,000 traders who are down the worst will have the opportunity, will get first crack at minting these 15,000 NFTs. Again, really creative, really fun. It just feels very Truth Labs in that way. You can also, if you buy these NFTs with Pepe, it is 50% off. So they are just good at hitting the zeitgeist. It'll be interesting to see what happens here. Obviously, it's a tough time to be minting an NFT project, but I do think there is a world where this mints out pretty well because it's Truth and they're doing something fun with the mechanics. The second project is that the second announcement, I should say, in just NFT world, Doodles 2 is now fully live. Folks can go on to the Doodles 2 or the Doodles website, I suppose, and they can start creating their Doodle spin-off characters using the wearables and everything that's been built and what we've been leading up to, what Doodles has been leading up to. There's also a Pharrell tie into this. I think there's like some unique Pharrell collection that's coming out. I'm sorry that I don't have all the details there, but leveraging that Pharrell partnership. Though it is interesting. I mean, I'm assuming the Pharrell stuff will go for a lot of money, but one of the things I feel like I've learned, or one of the things that has maybe become clear being in the NFT space, is like celebrity just isn't a guarantee for success. Like the biggest celebrities in the world still have brands that need to be managed with care. And even the biggest celebrity in the world can burn out its fan base if they aren't careful and strategic about what they participate in. And in that sense, it feels like any sort of franchise. Again, this is what we talk about with John Rogers, who managed franchises within Disney for a long time. It's like you can burn out even the most popular franchise, entertainment property if you're not careful about treating it with respect and care. So anyway, it'll be interesting to see what the Pharrell collection does. And then the last bit of news is about the Proof Diamond collection and the Proof Diamond drop. So that all sort of went to shit last Thursday, right after we had recorded our recap episode. So we didn't actually get to talk about it for last Friday's recap. So by now, this is somewhat old news. People probably know. Basically, the way that the Diamond airdrop happened, if you held multiple Moonbird NFTs, you were very likely to get dropped the same piece of art. Like they seem to just go in order, like 1 through, I forget however many pieces they had. They just kind of dropped them in order. So like if you had multiple Moonbirds, you would get 6 of the same pieces of art, for example. It's weird. I think there was some, people were assuming that there had been some bug. Initially, the devs, the Proof devs were saying, no, sorry, it was just like the wrong design. Like this wasn't a bug in a technical sense. It was just like bad product design, which in some ways feels like, being too early is the same as being wrong. Almost like, okay, sure, the result was the same, which is people were pretty disappointed. I also think it's tricky, right? Because so many people bought into Proof at such a high price point. Or I should say this, or didn't sell when Proof was at a really high price point because they were like nesting. They were holding out for the rewards. And so, and you've had sagas throughout the Proof ecosystem, throughout the proof timeline here, where there were the fanny packs and there were the socks and there were things that people felt like were really not the level of rewards that they were hoping for. And so to have this screw up, let's call it, with the diamond airdrop, I think was really disappointing for folks. But the truth is, most people weren't going to end up with a Beeple anyway. So there was, I think, a pretty high chance that this was going to ultimately be somewhat disappointing to people anyways, because this was really the thing that folks had been waiting for. If they bought in high, if they didn't sell high, and their justification was this diamond nesting moment, there's a world where they just like weren't going to feel good about this in any case. And I'm sympathetic to the proof argument that like it's just really hard to ever please a community where so many different people came in at so many different price points. Anyway, we'll certainly talk about this with Kevin when we are live on stage together, which is going to be on May 16th. If you are an OPJ NFT holder, you're all set to go and claim your ticket for that event on May 16th it's a Tuesday in California. If you are in the proof ecosystem or you are in the DGods ecosystem, you will be able to start claiming that today. So if you're listening to this the day it comes out, which is Friday, May 5th, you can start claiming your tickets for that event. So we'll talk to Kevin about this. I certainly understand people's frustrations. Of course, the latest news is now they are looking to rectify this, which is that they are going to respin the wheel in effect, and people once again have an opportunity they'll have an opportunity to trade in any art they don't want. So if you were one of those people who had 6 moonbirds and got 6 of the same pieces of art that you didn't want, you can go and trade in 5 of your pieces for a chance to get other different pieces, including some Beeples. Proof did go out and buy like Beeple art on secondary and bought some of these artists that were in their diamond collection. They bought their art on secondary. So there's more pieces for folks to potentially get than even what was just in the original drop. So I do think they're relatively making good on this, but I know it's frustrating. Like, just execute right. Like, why can't we just get some of these things right? So anyway, that is the show. That is the news. Thank you all so much for being here with us and hanging with us. I can't wait to meet more of you in person in LA on May 16th. And with that, have a great weekend. Thank you so much for watching this episode of Overpriced JPEGs. If you liked this conversation, if you liked this episode, please go ahead and hit subscribe. It helps me out, it helps the show out, and it means you will get alerts and updates when we post new content. Thanks again.